Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Potential masterclass from Ben J and Nastie here, putting together a database of all the contract situations after the World Championship and even at the present time for many of these players going into next season. Some surprises on here for sure, especially the fact that according to the rumours, Dashy is going to be a full free agent going into the off-season. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to leave OpTic Texas, but does mean that he can most certainly explore options elsewhere depending on what happens at this year's World Championship. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Firstly, there was just this. This team didn't make it in the end, I'm pretty sure, to the Challengers World Championship, but they pretty much already confirmed here on my Brooklyn. This is going to be their team for Black Ops 6. So I know this Mercules guy, Merc, was definitely getting a lot of praise for his performance over the last couple of stages, and it's definitely interesting that, well, Challengers Champs hasn't even happened yet, and already we have Black Ops 6 Rostermania coming into play, but that's certainly going to be relevant here in a couple of seconds. Couple of things to mention for players, right? Because the likes of Flames, what's his contract situation? Especially because some of these organizations outperformed expectations maybe this year to some degree. Certainly Los Angeles Guerrillas, okay, maybe they would have expected to at least mix it up for the World Championship qualification, but the fact that they got there, very commendable. Top 3 at Major 4, very commendable as well. So we'll see what that means for Flames and Estriel, especially given the fact that in an ideal world, maybe Guerrillas extend Estriel, but it's not so clear that's going to be possible based on whatever contracts those guys signed at the start of the season, which potentially mean some serious change is going to be afoot here. And tweet your thoughts as well on this. We talked about this the other day, the tier list that Ace and Trey put together of all the players in the league. I think this was generally pretty good. There was some debate on whether Kenny should be A tier, whether Pred should be B tier, although I think that maybe I would just put Kenny A tier and leave Pred where he is, because I think over the course of the season, that's probably fair. You know, there was talk about Illy. Did he deserve B tier because he didn't really play that long? I think in the stint that he played for, he probably was a B tier player, but didn't play the entire season, obviously. And there's some other things you can mess around with, I would say, further down. But the S tier was just Simp, HyDra, and Scrap, which is basically your MVP candidates of the season. MettalZ was making the point that Shotzzy should be in there as well, which, look, if you're going to make a list of superstars, yeah, Shotzy's in there. On the performance on average this season, has he been as consistent as Scrap, HyDra, or Simp? Probably not. If there was another player that I would put in there, though, like just behind those guys, it probably would be Shotzzy. So there was definitely some debate on whether Shotzzy is getting like the flowers that he deserves or not, because I guess at the end of the day, we've had 4 teams win an event each this season, one of which is FaZe, one of which is Subliners, one of which is Ultra, one of which is OpTic, right? So maybe it feels more justified to have one player from each of those teams in the S tier, and if there was anyone that it would be from OpTic, I think it would be Shotzzy. But if you look at the numbers, the consistency, the LAN versus online stuff, I think Simp, HyDra, Scrap have been the clear 3 standouts this season, and well, realistically, it's going to be one of those 3 that's going to win the MVP this season. But we've got to talk about what this means for the whole contractual stuff behind the scenes, certainly at OpTic, but also on the other teams as well. Obviously, we saw this between Scump and Pred, and Scump and Dashy, and Scump and Shotzzy over the last couple of weeks. They've also done one with Kenny. This, I guess, was recorded at a different time because clearly they're not on the same couches. It ain't the same background as they've got when they did these conversations. So I'm not exactly sure when this was done. But yeah, so this is releasing today between Scump and Ken, obviously discussing things going into the World Championship. We'll be interested to see, of course, what they talk about here. But Ben J and Nastie puts together a free agent / contract tracker, basically, for all of the CDL teams and for the upcoming off-season. Now, based on this, what the data we have, it's probably not going to be like an insane off-season in terms of, you know, we've got massive names moving around teams. To be honest, though, that contracts can change. Contracts are there to be broken sometimes, and the fact that these situations get put together, the deals get done by the relative teams and players, does not necessarily mean that things can't change. Doesn't mean that buyouts can't happen. Doesn't mean that a player is unhappy with their team and wants to leave. Like, let's say you are HyDra, and sure, you've just won an event, Kismet played really well at Major 4. Let's say that doesn't happen at the World Championship, then does HyDra think, you know what, I've had enough of this, I want to be out of here, I've got better options on the table, and potentially other players could feel similarly as well. So just because the contract data says this doesn't necessarily mean that it actually is going to be happening. And also, these are just information that Ben has, so he's been asking around trying to figure out what the situation is, and if he believes what he's written is true, then he'll write it, and if he's unclear on on what the situation is, he'll write unclear. So it's all rumours. We don't know if this stuff is true for sure, but based on information and, you know, whatever Ben and others have cooked up behind the scenes, he believes this is probably going to be the situation as it stands. So he updated a couple of things, should be pretty close to accurate with current contract statuses. So take this with a bit of a grain of salt, but let's have a look through exactly what the situation currently is. So just to explain quickly, a team option is when the organization has signed the player to what is likely a 1+1, potentially like a 2+1, but likely a 1+1 year deal, which was potentially like renegotiated, right? Because FaZe are kind of on like rolling 1+1s, it seems. They'll, you know, have a 1+1, they'll get extended, and then FaZe will say, okay, let's re-sign a new contract now for another 1+1. So effectively, FaZe are never at risk of the player leaving, because if the contract comes to an end, then the player is free to go. Whereas for FaZe, what they've basically done is sign their players to 1+1 rolling deals, such as that FaZe just get the choice as to whether they extend or not. And, you know, likely they will extend. Of course, there's a debate as to whether, depending on how FaZe do at Champs, could they actually blow it up this time? Of course, aBeZy and Simp aren't going anywhere, but there is a question that if their, you know, AR duo doesn't really perform and they come, let's say, third at Champs or second at Champs again, they might have to consider something. But I think all things considered, FaZe probably sticking out this year. However, Minnesota Rock are different spots because, yes, accuracy is under a team option, but it is likely that he will not be extended, and therefore it's likely that he will become a free agent, either as a player or, as we talked about yesterday and the day before, possibly the new coach for OpTic Texas. That's been a big talking point going around. Gunless is unclear. Leans is unlikely, as in likely to get his contract extended. Standy is the opposite, likely to be released. So that is how we currently understand it. Now, it's pretty interesting you look at Boston. So all of Major Maniac, Beans and Priestahh likely to be released from their option, but Snoopy, according to rumours, is contracted for at least another year. So they actually just straight up signed Snoopy after, I guess, his World Championship performance last season. They signed him not to a 1+1 year deal, but to a 2+1 or a 2+0 or something, where effectively they've got Snoopy locked down for the long term, which goes to show why he ain't going anywhere, right? According to sources, that, yeah, Snoopy's contracted, that ain't changing. So he is going to be very likely on their team Boston next season. And look, if you're going to stick with Snoopy, you've tried a multitude of AR players and veterans to try and make it work, and that worked yet. So they've got to think about that, I'm sure. This is just quickly on the Subliners. The team option is apparently there for HyDra, but obviously they will be extending that team option. Potentially Sib and Kiz as well also have a contract that goes through, and likely Skyz will stay as well. So the feeling is that probably Subliners will look to stick it out in the off-season, but of course last year they literally won Champs and made a change. So if they don't win Champs, you've got to think about something. And sure, HyDra's under a team option, Subliners will extend that team option, but if he wants to leave and he says, like, I can't, I don't want to play for this org anymore, then it's still possible that he might be able to go depending on the opportunities elsewhere. Miami's kind of interesting. It's kind of all over the place, actually. You've got MettalZ, Lucky, and ErikBooM all contracted for at least another season. ReeaL has a team option and will probably be kept, and Vikul's a full free agent, although I think is possibly likely to stay. So this is what we've got to understand. A free agent means the contracts come to an end, and therefore the player is free to explore options. Doesn't mean that he's going to go. They could easily say to Vikul, hey, we want to re-sign you, keep the same roster. Do you want to come back? And he'll say yes, because is Vikul going to get a better opportunity outside of Miami? Rather unlikely. But of course, it is possible for other teams. And this is when it's interesting when we look at, for example, Vegas Legion. And this is the point. Yes, Vegas have signed attached Geo Johnny to 1+1 year deals. Nero, apparently, though, is a complete free agent. But the understanding is, as Ben says, they will all be free agents because they will not take up these team options, right? Because this is usually what Vegas do, almost always what they do, and other organizations as well. They will deliberately not take up the team options. They don't have to pay the players through the off-season. That is usually the strategy here. So they will probably say to attach Geo, Nero, Johnny, hey, do what you like. And then if you don't go to another team, I'll call you back in about 3 months and let's get you contracted back again. So that's probably what's going to happen here, which means if there are better opportunities out there for Nero, Geo, attached Johnny, they will be able to go to them. I think Nero certainly should be considered by some other teams. And this is the same thing for the Los Angeles Gorillas, I think that organization, they've just been thinking about chalking it up, haven't they? Like getting out of the league, selling the spot, whatever. And that's, as a result of that, you're seeing that all of the players are apparently free agents, and it does not seem like necessarily that is going to be changing. So again, Estriel, Flames, Diamondcon, Fame, like especially Estriel, for example, is potentially Rookie of the Year. If he gets an offer elsewhere, he will probably go to that offer elsewhere. Surge is interesting in the sense that aBeZy and Hook, players that were just signed, this year onto the team, are complete free agents. So they were signed, it seems, on 1+0 deals. Even aBeZy is free to walk if he wants to, which is pretty interesting because, as a potential Rookie of the Year candidate, he might be considered elsewhere. Apparently 04 is on a team option, so a 1+1 extension is possible there, and they're likely to do that. Unclear whether they're going to do that for aBeZy. Thieves is pretty interesting that, they've got Ghosty and all of these guys under option, so they probably will extend Ghosty, although if he wants to leave or if somebody wants to buy him out, it's obviously possible that he leaves, but it's, as Ben says, he's not going to be a free agent, they are going to extend him, but the other guys, it's unclear whether they'll keep them or not. Ravens, a similar boat. Gwyn's under a team option, they're probably going to extend him, so again, another player that could be an interesting player in the free agency market, who is probably not going to be going anywhere, and according to Ben's sources, it's all the same thing as well over at Toronto, where they all have team options on kind of like a rolling phase basis where they just keep re-signing them, but they're not going to be free agents because they're going to extend all of these guys. Although, maybe that's not quite so clear. So, Pred and Kenny, this is the interesting part really, have contracts that run through this season as well. So, they were signed on 2+1s or something when they were not just, 1 year extension, but they are guaranteed to be around for at least another season in addition. Although OpTic could make a change, right? Just because Pred and Kenny are under contract doesn't mean that OpTic can't, break that contract, but still they'll have to pay him out a big sum of money or whatever the case is. So pretty likely, based on this, probably Pred isn't going to be going very far, and Shotzzy is under a team option as well. Probably he's not going to be going very far. But if OpTic underperform at Champs, as they just underperformed at Major 4, they're probably going to want to consider some sort of change. And does Shotzzy get the keys to make that change? Potentially, potentially not. So this is when the whole Dashy free agent thing is interesting, right? There were rumours that, did he re-sign a new deal during last season so that this type of situation wouldn't happen? But apparently not. According to Ben's sources and information, yeah, Dashy's contract is now going to come to an end. Of course, he, came back at the start of last season after getting dropped. And really, Dashy's tenure in OpTic has been filled with drama for one reason or another. There's been lots of ups and downs, lots of good results, lots of bad results, lots of problems and controversy and everything under the sun really that Dashy's been going through with OpTic. Now, will Dashy ever voluntarily leave OpTic? I don't really think so. I guess there is a possibility that Toronto say, hey, we didn't do so well at Champs. Dashy, do you want to come play for us? Like Dashy and Scrap as an AR duo over at Ultra. And of course, Dashy is a complete free agent. If OpTic decide they want to make a change and maybe Dashy isn't part of their future plans, who knows? Then maybe that's a possibility, right? But it does mean that there is less friction for Dashy to leave the team if he was to want to, or if the team was to make a change, Dashy would be the easy one out in a way. Although, on average, over the course of the season, Dashy's probably been their second best player, I would say, behind Shotzzy, and is likely in the candidates, at least, for the objective player of the season, based on the way that he's played. So, I still don't really think that Dashy will ever leave, as I say, OpTic voluntarily, but him being a free agent does open the door a little bit to other possibilities. And the fact that Pred and Kenny are locked under contract, and Shotzzy will be as well for another season, definitely does raise questions on if OpTic, bomb out top 4 or worse, or even probably top 3 or worse in some respects, whether they have to think about exactly what pieces do they change if they wanted to make a serious change going into next season. So very much intrigued to your perspective on all this stuff in the comment section below. This was a post from last year, but it's still kind of relevant, right? The Dashy's now made a lot of world championships, but has yet to get over the line. Maybe this is going to be his chance, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.